people have a right to know. People have a right to that transparency. One person really can let people know. One person can bring transparency to big tech.
He was fired today. I've actually just been in contact with him. He was an employee at Pinterest.
So you blew the whistle inside Pinterest. Are you willing to go public?
Yes.
Why don't you tell us about yourself?
I'm a software engineer. I worked at Pinterest. I speak at tech conferences around the world. I contribute to open source code projects that are actually used in most of the major apps that people use on their phones every day. And I saw wrongdoing and decided to take action.
Why did you want to take action? Why did you decide to do this?
Because if I didn't, who would? There would be a huge bystander effect. There is a huge bystander effect inside Silicon Valley. And right now we're seeing an imminent threat to not just pro-lifers, to not just conservatives, but free speech in general, and to America, and to the idea of transparency and the idea of people versus the establishment.
Well, let's take it back to day one. How did this all start?
It started with just my hearing some rumblings of hate speech policies, new misinformation campaigns going on. We were ramping up our trust and safety efforts. I know the media was getting more pressure on tech companies to ramp up their misinformation campaigns. And so I'd hear about these things at like our company All Hands, didn't look too much into them. And then in about March, I started checking on what these people were saying in our company message board, Slack. And then it was pretty egregious. And then I knew this isn't actually normal. And when I looked deeper, it just got worse from there.
Why did you decide to reach out to us, Project Veritas, as opposed to, say, the Washington Post or the San Francisco Chronicle?
If I had gone to the New York Times or the Washington Post or the San Francisco Chronicle or any of the established media, they would have not only ignored the story, they would have turned me in. They would have worked with their establishment buddies because they're all friends, they all want to help each other out, and they would have turned me in. And Project Veritas was the obvious choice because Project Veritas is actually journalism that's going to cover the story. It's actually going to fight the status quo.
So take us to the day we release the story. You're inside Pinterest. What happens?
Well, I go into one of our buildings where we serve breakfast, like I do every day. I get in there right before 9:30, and I have my breakfast. Everything seems pretty fine. Finish my breakfast, and then I'm walking over to our engineering building where my desk is and where I do my work, and I notice that I'm being locked out of some accounts, and I realize that this is probably the end of my work at Pinterest. I go in, badge works fine, go in, sit at my desk at Pinterest, and a few employees, a few of my colleagues come over and say, hey, we can't reach you on Slack, seems like your account's been deactivated. I say, okay, and then I wait for somebody to come talk to me. Eventually security does. 3 security guards come up to me and say, "Are you Eric?" And I'm like, "That's me." I hand him my badge and my laptop, and I ask him if I've done anything wrong, what's happening, why am I being escorted out of the building. They don't say anything. We walk out the back, and then I'm released from the building.
Were you surprised by this? Were you prepared for what was going to happen to you?
I was surprised, but I knew it was a possibility, and I was mentally prepared. I knew that at any time they were going to take action against a whistleblower. They didn't want this to be known to anybody, and they were going to retaliate in some fashion.
You lost your job for, is it fair to say, a cause you believe in?
Of course.
Tell me about that.
Well, to me, there's no other option. Like, I could go through life and I could live in the comforts of life and I could go on for 80 years and then make money, do the formula of life, and then I'll just fall to ashes. And I think that's how a lot of people live their lives. And it's hard to break out of that rhythm. There's like an inertia of life like that. And to me, this was just such an obvious choice because I saw wrongdoing, and if I didn't say anything about it, it would have been an adventure. It would have been something that really makes a dent in history, and I wouldn't have done it. Nobody would have done it. Everybody would have been a bystander. And this is something that no matter what happens, no matter what I lose, it'll mean something after I'm gone.
Just listening to you speak, there's this sort of quiet confidence and fortitude to what you're saying. And most people may not view life that way or don't comprehend how you can make that decision to lose a very high-paying job. Walk people through what goes through your mind in that moment when you decide to risk it all.
I tell a lot of people, like, what are you saving your ammo for? Like, you're building up your wealth, you're doing all this stuff, and it's like in anticipation of what? This is the moment that matters. This is what I'm gonna do with my life. This is how I make an impact on the world.
Last night, I picked you up from the airport, and you spoke with another insider. Without giving too much away, I think she had inspired you. Tell us about that process where you were inspired by what somebody else had done.
Everyone is expected to be the same. Everyone's expected to not talk about these things openly. In the orientation at Facebook, they said the #1 rule of Facebook is don't talk about Facebook. I see an odd note on an account. Being a curious person, I decided to look into it more.
Yeah, when I saw the report from the insider, that's when I realized that there are so many people in big tech companies that see this going on all the time and then don't say anything. And I realized also that there was so much stuff in there that in Silicon Valley we just consider normal. Like Christian Easter, for example, being on the STL at Pinterest. To me, at first that just seemed normal. It was just like, yeah, you know, we gotta take care of any religious content. And then when I saw the insider's video, I realized that's not normal to most people. That's something that people need to know. That's newsworthy. And then I came to Project Veritas.
What would you tell other insiders who are watching this about your experiences over the last 24 hours?
It's all worth it. when all the comforts of life fade, this is going to be what matters. What I really realized yesterday was that I can live without him. You know, I don't need him. And all the things that we think are so important, like our status on social media, even our reputations online, they don't matter. And that's really how the tech establishment controls people. It's with this idea of just a high school bully fear, intimidation, that you're going to be a social outcast. But those things aren't real. That's completely false. It's just fake stuff. And there's so many people in the real world who do support you and who do have your back. And you're making all the difference for the country and for the world and for humanity when you come forward and you tell people what's really going on inside of these dark censorship bureaus.
What is your goal from what you have done? What do you want to see happen next?
I believe this is the spark that abolishes abortion. I believe that people have to be shaken awake after this, after they see that live action is going to be banned on social media. The abortion lobby and its buddies in big tech and big media is going all out right now. And they are 100% in this to censor pro-life ideas and people and content and arguments. And that's all they have is censoring. All they have is noise and censoring. And they're 100% in it. And my big question to the pro-life movement is, are you going to be shaken awake? And are you 100% in it? And do you have skin in the game? Because when you have skin in the game, then you're willing to take action.
What do you make of Pinterest's reaction? Because they reacted back and forth, removing from the porn domain block list, putting them back on the list, and then banning live action outright. What do you make of the reactions?
So at first, where they tried to just remove liveaction.org from the porn domain block list, I think they thought the story was kind of going to blow over. They were just going to revert that change and then allow live action pins to be created, and then it was just going to all go away. And then when they saw the story, they knew it was going to be big. Then they realized they had to double down. They had to add live action links back to the porn domain block list so people couldn't post live action links and pins. And then they had to ban live action's Pinterest account. And then they had to say that it was because of misinformation. And so they had to say, and they're going to have to say publicly, that they believe that live action and pro-life content is misinformation that they don't want on their platform. And what I really see happening here is when one big tech company does something like this, there's a hive mind. Big tech, everybody's talking to each other. All these content and safety teams are all working with each other. And this is going to be a ripple effect. You're going to see big tech doubling down, just like Pinterest did, to censor pro-life content. And that's why we need the insiders in those companies from all walks of life to come forward, expose those tactics.
The fear that most Americans feel to blow the whistle. There's no question a lot of people inside these companies who are listening to you talk, and they may be thinking, yep, I see really bad stuff. I see corruption, lies, hypocrisy, but I could never do what Eric did. I could never come out of the shadows. Maybe I fear, I don't know, humiliation by the media, notwithstanding concerns about how they're going to pay their mortgage. Just the fear of being attacked by the press and called bad names. And what struck me in observing you and getting to know you over the last couple of days is there's no part of you that fears that. Help us understand why that's the case.
It's a question of where you put your value is your value in the fake things, like your own personal status, the things that fade. Your personal status isn't going to be here. It's going to go away. You're going to become ashes in a few decades. Or do you put your value in the impact that you make on humanity, in the positive impact you can make in the world? And when I saw that I had the opportunity to make an impact on the world and to expose corruption, then because I had put my value in things that are lasting, then there was no hesitation for me. Whatever happens to me doesn't matter, because what I've done now is done, and now this sparks so many more people, and it awakens so many more people to what's going on in tech, that there's no time, there's no space, there's no mental energy in my head to spend on thinking about my reputation or the pseudo friends I've had or anything else that I've done, because this is the most important thing. I'm 100% in this and will follow this through.
Some might call you David versus Goliath. Pinterest had an IPO evaluation of over $12 billion. Pinterest might sue you. They might come after you. What do you say to that?
Bring it on, because that's just going to bring more light to the case. More people are going to see that. More people are going to see the big tech establishment fight a whistleblower. And they're not going to side with the big tech establishment. And they're going to have to admit what they've done. They're going to have to react. They're going to have to, again, say what they've done in private, and they're going to have to make it a matter of public policy. When they're banning accounts, when they're secretly adding things to a porn block list, and then that doesn't match their public policy, now it'll have to. Now they'll have to tell the public, this is what we really think, this is where we really stand, this is where we really stand on the issues. And then the public then will react.
How can people help you?
My friends at Pro-Life San Francisco have set up a GoFundMe, and that can help me out through the uncertain waters in the next couple months here.
Okay. I have one more question, and then I'm sure there's some things that you may want to address. Right now, someone's watching this, and they're thinking, they're teetering, they're on the fence. I agree with what you're saying. I share the same values. I want to blow the whistle, but they're on the fence about whether they should do that. Right now, that person is watching you talk and saying, I admire what he's doing, but I don't know. What is your message for that person watching?
The hardest part is to take the first step. Once you've taken the first step, it's a ball in motion. You can do anything. Willpower is indomitable. And if you take that first step, then people have your back. And come to Project Veritas for sure. People have your back. You have support. The tech companies can't fight us all.